Introduction to Marxist economics. Okay, let's go. Today, under the impact of the capitalist crisis, many workers have developed a thirst for economics. They are attempting to understand the forces which dominate their lives. This brief introduction to Marxist economics attempts to provide the class-conscious worker not with the complete account of economics, but a guide to the basic laws of motion of capitalist society dominating his existence. Maybe we should get some music in the background as well. Uh, Something calming. Just uh, to set the mood. Keep this a bit down. Any good music suggestions? The one person who's watching, if there is a person, it might just be a bot who's watching. I don't know. I don't know how this works. Oh, hey, I'm live. See? I need music. What's some relaxing music? Relaxing, or what sort of music do we want? A bit exciting. Exciting background music, yeah. Let's see if there's something good. Okay, let's see if this is good. I don't know why it takes so long with everything. I guess it's just how my PC. So there's different color songs. So I guess we can do this. Let's see if it works properly. That is, it's being a bit glitchy on my. I hate this. Every time something has to mess up. Oh wait, there's two times. Come on. Just work. Stop being annoying. Maybe I should just do the stupid drama streams like Xander Hall is doing. I do plan on some better streams for the future. Just messaging someone. Now let's see. I thought it was this Friday. Maybe I was wrong. What were they talking about? Okay, this is normal now. I'm going to reduce the quality just so it doesn't mess up. And get too loud. I need to reduce the volume. Maybe a bit more, like here. Let me know if it's too loud or too quiet. I think this is good. Okay. Today, under the impact of the capitalist crisis, what the hell was that? Many workers have developed a thirst for economics. They are attempting to understand the forces which dominate their lives. This is a bit loud. This is fine. Yeah, this is fine. Okay. They are attempting to understand the forces which dominate their lives. This brief introduction to Marxist economics attempts to provide the class-conscious worker with a complete account of economics, or not with a complete account of economics, but a guide to the basic laws of motion of capitalist society dominating his existence. The shallowness of capitalist economics is demonstrated by their inability to understand the crisis affecting their system. Its role is to cover up the exploitation of the working class and to prove the superiority of capitalist society. Their quack theories and solutions are incapable of patching up the rotten and diseased nature of capitalism. Only the transformation of society on socialist lines and the introduction of a planned economy can end the nightmare of unemployment, slump, and chaos. The right-wing labor leaders have rejected their old goal Keynes to replaced by orthodox economic solutions: cuts, wage restraint, and deflation. The left reformists still cling to the capitalist policies of yesterday: reflation, import control, etc., which have been recognized as totally ineffective under capitalism. Only with a Marxist understanding of capitalist society can the conscious worker cut through the lies and distortion of the capitalist economists and combat their influence within the labor movement. Conditions for capitalism. Today, modern production is concentrated in the hands of giant companies. Unilever, ICI, Ford, British Petroleum are some examples of the firms which dominate our lives. Although it is true that small businesses do exist, they really represent the production of the past and not the present. Modern production is essentially a mass, large-scale business. At present, 200 top companies together with 35 banks and finance houses control the British economy and account for 85% of output. I guess this is this specific site is centered around the British systems. So that's why it keeps mentioning those people. This development has come about over the past few hundred years through ruthless competition, crisis, and war. At the time when the classical economists predicted free trade in the future, Marx explained the development of monopoly from competition as the weaker firms went to the wall. Monopoly capitalism grew out of and abolished free competition. At first sight, it looks as if goods and things are produced mainly for people's needs. Obviously, every society has to do this, but under capitalism, goods are not merely produced to satisfy someone's want or need, but primarily for sale. That is the paramount function of capitalism. In capitalism, goods are not merely produced to satisfy someone's want or need, but primarily for sale. That is the paramount function of capitalist industry. In the famous words of the ex-chairman of British Leyland, Lord Stokes, "I'm in business to make money, not cars." This is the perfect expression of the aspirations of the entire capitalist class. The capitalist process of production requires the existence of certain conditions. Firstly, the existence of a large class of propertyless workers who are obliged to sell themselves piecemeal in order to live. Thus, the Tory conception of a property-owning democracy is an absurdity under capitalism, because if the mass of the population owns sufficient property to be self-sufficient, the capitalists would not find the workers to produce their profits. Secondly, the means of production must be concentrated in the hands of the capitalists. Over the centuries, the peasants and those who owned their means of subsistence were ruthlessly crushed and their means of life appropriated by the capitalists and landlords. They in turn hire workers to work these means of production and produce surplus value. I'm going to be back in a bit. 1 second. Okay, let's value and commodities. How does capitalism work? How are workers exploited? Where does profit come from? How are slums create cost? In order to answer these questions, we first need to learn the key to the mystery. What is value? Having solved this problem, the other answers fall into place. An understanding of value is essential for understanding of the economics of capitalist society. To begin with, all the capitalist firms produce goods or services, or more correctly, they produce commodities. That is a good or service produced for sale only. Of course, someone may make something for his or her personal use. Before capitalism existed, many people had to. But this is not a commodity. Capitalist production is above all the creation and immense accumulation of commodities. Capitalist production is above all the creation and immense accumulation of commodities. Marx Capital, Volume 1. That is why Marx himself started his investigation of capitalism with an analysis of the character of the commodity itself. Every commodity has a use value for people. That means they are useful to someone Otherwise, they could not be sold. This use value is limited to the physical properties of the commodity. They only contain a value. What is it and how can it be shown? If we leave the use of money out for the time being, commodities, when they are exchanged, fall into certain proportions. For example, a pair of shoes, a watch, is equal to 10 yards of cloth, 3 bottles of whiskey, 1 car tire. Each of the items on the left can be exchanged for 10 yards of cloth. They also in the same amount can be exchanged with one another. This simple example shows that the exchange of value of these different commodities express something contained in them. But what makes a pair of shoes equal 10 yards of cloth, or one watch equals 3 bottles of whiskey, and so on? This simple example shows that the exchange value of these different commodities expresses something contained in them. But I've read that. What makes a pair of shoes equals 10 yard of cloth, or one watch equals 3 bottles of whiskey, and so on? Well, obviously there must be something common to all. Clearly it is neither weight, color, nor hardness. Again, it is not because they are useful. Bread, after all, is worth less than a Rolls Royce, yet one is a necessity and the other a luxury. So what is the common value, common quality? The only thing in common is they are all products of human labor. The amount of human labor contained in a commodity is expressed in time, weeks, days, hours, minutes. To go back to the example, all these commodities can be expressed in terms of their common factor, labor time. 5 hours labor worth of shoes, 5 hours labor worth of tires, 5 hour labor's worth of watches, 5 hours labor worth of whiskey, 5 hours labor worth of cloth. Average labor. If we look at commodities as use values, the utility, we see them as a shoe, a watch, etc., as products of a particular kind of labor, the labor of the cobbler, watchmaker, etc. But in exchange, commodities are looked at differently. The special character is lost sight of, and they appear as so many units of average labor. In exchange, we are now comparing the amounts of human labor in general contained in the commodities. All labor in exchange is reduced to average simple units of labor. It is true that the commodity produced by skilled labor contains more value than that produced by unskilled. Therefore, in exchange, the units of skilled labor are reduced to so many units of unskilled simple labor. For example, the ratio of one skilled unit is equal to 3 unskilled units, or simply skilled labor is worth 3 times as much as unskilled. Explained simply, the value of a commodity is determined by the amount of average labor used in its production, or how long does it take to produce. But left like this, it appears that the lazy worker produces more values than the most efficient worker. Let us take the example of a shoemaker who decides to use the outdated methods of the Middle Ages to produce shoes. Using this method, it takes him a whole day to make a pair of shoes. When he tries to sell them on the market, he will find that they will only fetch the same as shoes produced by the better equipped, more modern factories. If these factories produced a pair of shoes in, say, half an hour, they will contain less labor and therefore less value and will be sold cheaper. This will drive the shoemaker using medieval methods out of business. His labor producing a pair of shoes after half an hour is wasted labor. What's that voice? And unnecessary under modern conditions. Also, maybe someone followed me, that's the noise. And unnecessary under modern conditions. On pain of extinction, he will be forced to introduce modern techniques and produce shoes at least equal to the necessary time developed by society. At any given time, using the average labor, machines, methods, etc., all commodities take a particular time to make. This is governed by the level of technique in society. In the words of Marx, all commodities must be produced in a socially necessary time. Any more labor time spent over and above this will be useless labor, causing costs to rise and making the firm uncompetitive. So, to be more precise, the value of commodity is determined by the amount of socially necessary labor in the article. Naturally, this time is continually changing as new techniques and methods of work are introduced. Competition drives the inefficient to the wall. Thus, we can also understand why precious gems have more value than everyday items. More socially necessary labor time is needed to find and extract the gems than the production of ordinary commodities, their value, therefore, being considerably higher. Again, a thing can be a use value without having any value. That is, a useful thing that has had no labor time spent on its production, air, rivers, virgin soil, natural meadows, etc. Therefore, labor is not the only source of wealth, that is, use values, but nature is too is a source. From this, we see that an increase in productivity will increase the amount of things produced, material wealth, but can reduce the value of the things concerned, that is, the amount of labor in each commodity is less. Increased productivity therefore results in an increase of wealth. With two coats, two people can be clothed. With one coat, only one person. Nevertheless, the increase in the quantity of material wealth may correspond with a fall in the magnitude of its wealth, magnitude of its value. Money. As a result of the difficulties in exchange by using the methods of barter, more frequently a common article was used as money. Over the centuries, one commodity, gold, became singled out to play this role as the universal equivalent. Marx Capital, Volume 1. Instead of saying a good is worth so much butter, meat, cloth, etc., it became expressed in terms of gold. The money expression of value is price. Gold was used because of its qualities. It concentrates much value in a small amount, can easily be divided into coins, and is also hard wearing. It's also hard wearing? What does that mean? Does it degrade slowly? I don't know. As with all commodities, the value of gold itself is determined by the amount of labor time spent on its production. For example, say it takes 40 hours of labor to produce 1 ounce of gold. Then all the other goods that take the same time to produce are equal to that ounce of gold. Those that take half the time equal half the amount, etc. 1 ounce of gold is equal to 40 hours of labor. Half an ounce of gold is equal to 20 hours labor. One fourth an ounce of gold is 10 hours of labor. Therefore, one car, 40 hours labor is equal to 1 ounce of gold. One table, 10 hours labor is 1/4 of gold. Due to the changes in productive techniques and the increase in the productivity of labor, all the values of commodities are continually fluctuating, like so many trains in a station pulling in and out at different times. If you take any train as a standard which is moving off to gauge the movement of others, it would lead to confusion. Only by standing on the firm platform can you judge accurately what is happening. In relation to the changes of all goods, gold acts as the measure. Although the most stable, even this is in constant motion, and as no commodity has a totally fixed value. Okay, so they're just introducing the different concepts and how it worked. I mean, I agree somewhat with it. There's some things I might have a bit of an issue with. Right now I'm just reading it, though I'm not like trying to analyze it, because not a lot of hello Pars Kahai. How do you say that? Your name? Parsk, Pars Kahai or Par Kahai? Is the S silent? How's it going? I'm just reading some basic Marxist economics right now. I'm finished with Mega Man X. So it's not like an analysis or anything, I'm just reading text right now. It might be boring or not. Plus I have some music. Oh yeah, you said, oh that's nice. Parks Kahai. Nice. But Pars Kahi. Pars Kahi. Okay, so the E is silent. Or high, like the Japanese high. Parks Kahai. Okay, anyways, sorry for my Armenian. No, it's fine. It's good to know how to say different things. I can say, like, the best I am with is, like, of course, the Indian, Pakistani type names because I grew up with them. The Arabic type names are fine. The Farsi names are fine. I'm decent with the Chinese and the Japanese names, not so much with the Southeast Asian other ones. I mean, I'm not sure how my Korean accent, like saying the names, is. But anyways, it isn't like a really exciting stream. I'm just doing it because I had to read this anyway, so I was like, I'll just put it on stream. Saying it out loud is better as well. And it gives me motivation to actually do it. I hope you find it somewhat engaging. Okay, so we've read money and now we're doing prices of commodities. The law of value governs the price of goods. As explained earlier, the value of commodities is equal to the amount of labor contained in it. In theory, the value is equal to its price, yet in reality, the price of a commodity tends to be either above or below its real value. This fluctuation is caused by different influences on market price, such as the growth of monopoly, the difference of supply and demand also have a great effect. The differences of supply and demand also have a great effect. Just listening, that's nice. What are you playing? The differences of supply and demand also have a great effect. For instance, there may be a surplus of a commodity in the market and the price that they may be far below the real value, or if there was a shortage, the price would rise above it. The effects of supply and demand have led bourgeois economists to believe that this law is the sole factor in determining price. What they were unable to explain was that prices always fluctuate around a definite level. Crusader Kings 3, is it like a strategy game? I hope you have fun. I'm not big on strategy games, so I do remember playing the Crusader games on PC, like when I was a child. They were fun. I was also thinking of maybe getting Civ 6 for the Switch, but haven't done that yet. Anyways, where was I? What they were unable to explain was that prices always fluctuate around a definite level. What that level is not determined by supply and demand, but by the labor time spent in the article's production. Nice. I hope you have fun. A lorry will always be more expensive than a plastic bucket. Profits. Okay, this is a small one. Nice. Is it on PC or like console thing? What are you playing it on? Okay, profits. Some clever people have invented the theory that profits arise from buying cheap and selling dear. Dear? I guess selling dear means more expensive. In Value, Price and Profit, Marx explains the nonsense of this argument. Okay, what a man would certainly win as a seller, he would lose as a purchaser. It would not do to say that there are men who are buyers without being sellers or consumers without being producers. What these people pay to the producers, they must first get from them for nothing. If a man first takes your money and afterwards returns that money in buying your commodities, you will never enrich yourself by selling your commodities too dear to that same man. This sort of transaction might diminish a loss but would never help in realizing a profit. Okay, that's nice. They will release on console and you're playing on PC. I need to read that one again because I didn't quite understand it. What a man would certainly win as a seller, he would lose as a purchaser. It would not do to say that there are men who are buyers without being sellers or consumers without being producers. What these people pay to the producers, they must first get from them for nothing. Okay, what these people pay to the producers, they must first get from them for nothing. Pay to this. Okay. If a man first takes your money and afterwards returns that money in buying your commodities, you will never enrich yourself by selling your commodities too dear to that same man. This sort of transaction might diminish a loss but would never help in realizing a profit. Okay, and now we go on to labor power. In obtaining the factors of production, the capitalist looks on the labor market as just another branch of the general market for commodities. The abilities and energies of the worker are seen as just another commodity. He advertises for so many hands. What we have to be clear about is what the capitalist has bought. The worker has sold not his labor, but his ability to work. This Marx calls his labor power. Labor power is a commodity governed by the same laws as other commodities. Its value is determined by the labor time necessary for its production. Labor power is the ability of the worker to work. It is consumed by the capitalist in the actual labor process. But this presupposes the existence and health and strength of the worker. I think someone followed me again. I get this weird sound, but I'm not sure what it is. But yeah, I think someone followed me. Thank you. I think you followed me, Parks Kahai. You won't get a lot of streams, but hopefully when you do, they're enjoyable. Okay, where were we? Labor power is the ability of the worker to work. It is consumed by the capitalist in the actual labor process, but this presupposes the existence and health and strength of the worker. The production of labor power therefore means the worker's self-maintenance and the reproduction of his species to provide new generations of hands for the capital. Yup, yeah. The sound is so weird that maybe I should change that. Like dong 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 dong, like it's annoying. I don't know. The labor time necessary for the worker's maintenance is the labor time it takes to produce the means of subsistence for him and his family. Food, clothing, fuel, etc. The amount of this varies with different countries, different climates, different historical periods. What is adequate subsistence for a laborer in Calcutta would not be adequate for a Welsh miner. What was adequate for a Welsh miner 50 years ago would not be for a Midlands car worker today. Into this question, unlike the value of other commodities, there enters a historical and even moral element. It will be amazing the many times you upgrade along with your streaming career. Yeah, hopefully. It's very early right now. I had to deal with a lot of issues, but It's nice to have new followers and new watchers. Okay. Nevertheless, in any given country at any particular stage of historical development, the standard of living is known. Incidentally, it is precisely the creation of new needs which is the spur of all kinds of human progress. Not cheated. Okay, that's a funny name. Uh, I don't know how much, whether I'll go all the way through. This is a pretty long article, like it keeps going and going, but it keeps going and going, but we'll see. Not cheated. Apart from the daily reproduction of his labor power and the reproduction of the species at a certain stage in the development of capitalist technique, a certain amount has to be provided for the education of the workers in order to fit them for the condition of modern industry and raise their productivity. Unlike most commodities, labor power is paid for only after it has been consumed. The workers thus philanthropically extend credit to their employers. Weeks in hand, petty cheating, and bankruptcy leading to loss of wages. Okay, yeah. Despite this, the worker has not been cheated. He has arrived at an agreement of his own free will. As with all other commodities, equivalent values are exchanged. The worker's commodity, labor power, is sold to the boss at the going rate. Everybody is satisfied. And if the worker is not, then he is free to leave and find work elsewhere if he can. The sale of labor power poses a problem. If nobody is cheated, if the workers receives the full value of his commodity, where does exploitation come from? Where does the capitalist make his profits? The answer is that the worker sells the capitalist not his labor, which is realized in the work process, but his labor power, his ability to work. Having purchased this as a commodity, the capitalist is free to use it as he pleases. As Marx explained, from the instant he steps into the workshop, the use value of his labor power, and therefore also its use, which is labor, belongs to the capitalist. Now we're getting to the more juicy stuff, surplus value. Did I get a message? 1 second. One second, I'm just messaging someone. It's for a future stream. Surplus value. We will see from the following example that the capitalist purchases labor power because it is the only commodity which can produce new values above and beyond its own value. Let us take a worker who is employed to spin cotton into yarn. He gets paid $1 per £1 per hour and works an 8-hour day. After 4 hours, he had produced 100 pounds of yarn at a total value of 20 pounds. This value of 20 pounds is made up from the following: raw materials $11, cotton spindle power, depreciation $1, wear and tear, new value $8. Okay, yeah. The new value created is sufficient to pay the workers' wages for the full 8 hours. At this point, the capitalist has covered all his costs, including his total wage bill. But as yet, no surplus value profit has been produced. During the next 4 hours, another 100 pounds of yarn is produced, again at a value of 20 pounds. And again, 8 pounds of new value is created. But this time, the wages have already been covered. Therefore, this new value, 8 pounds, is surplus value. From this comes rent to the landlord, interest to the moneylender, and profit to the industrialist. Thus, surplus value or profit, in the words of Marx, is the unpaid labor of the working class. The working day. The secret of the production of surplus. Yo, PK Chocolate, how's it going? We're just reading some basic Marxist theory right now. Shahji, uh, are you from Pakistan or India? Thank you, PK Chocolate, for following. Shahji is a very, I guess it's a very Pakistani thing to say, not really an Indian thing. Okay, Nahu. Thank you. Okay, yeah, so I'm not doing like much analysis, just reading at this point. Nice, which area? I'm from Quetta. So, Shaji in the house. Thank you. More like Nawab Sahib for the Baloch people. Nawab Sahib. I think you might be, let me guess, either Islamabad or Lahore. Maybe Lahore. Peshawar. Oh, okay, yeah, I was wrong. I don't know why I thought Islamabad or Lahore. Pash Wale. So I do play games. Who is this? Chand Rambo. Lahore. Yeah, I was right. So I don't know why I read Peshawar before. Lord. I do play games, but right now I'm reading Marxist economics. And I'm not doing more like an analysis, but more so reading its basic Marxist theory. And we can get back to that now. Thank you for watching, everyone. The working day. The secret of the production of surplus value is that the worker continues to work longer after he has produced the value necessary to reproduce the value of his labor power, his wage. The fact that half a day's labor is necessary to keep the laborer alive does not in any way prevent him from working a full day. Marx Capital, Volume 1. I can't talk in Urdu, sorry. This is a stream for what do you call it? Like the Western audience, sort of Canada, US. I can talk in Urdu in some other stream, but right now, this is what you get, sorry. Plus, I can't translate all of this into Urdu anyways. The fact that half a day's labor is necessary to keep the laborer alive does not in any way prevent him from working a full day. Urdu में बात कर सकता हूँ, पंजाबी मुझे नहीं आती, but English is necessary right now. There are some other people watching as well. Sareki मेरे को आंदी है, मेरे को पंजाबी नहीं आंदी. So let's get back to the reading now. The worker has sold his commodity and cannot complain about the way he is used, any more than the tailor can sell a suit and then demand that his customer must not wear it as often as he likes. The working day is therefore as so organized as to give the maximum benefits from the labor power he has bought. In this lay the secret of the transformation of money into capital, constant capital. In production itself, machines and raw materials lose their use value. They become burnt up and become absorbed into the new product. They transfer their value into the new commodity. This is clear in relation to raw materials, wood, metal, dyes, fuel, etc., which are wholly consumed in the process of production, only to reappear in the properties of the article produced. Machines, on the other hand, do not disappear in the same way, but they do deteriorate in the course of production, thus dying a protracted death. The exact moment when a machine is finally declared redundant is no more possible to fix with exactitude than the exact moment of a person's death. But just as the insurance company, on the basis of the theory of averages, makes very accurate and profitable calculations concerning the lifespan of men and women, so the capitalist knows by experience and calculation roughly how long a machine will last. The depreciation of machinery, its daily loss of use value, is calculated on the basis and added on to the cost of the article produced. Thus, the means of production add to the commodity their own value in proportion as the deterioration of its use value unfolds. The means of production, therefore, cannot transfer to the commodity more than that value which they themselves lose in the process of production. It is thus called constant capital. Variable capital. While the means of production add no new value to the commodities produced, but only deteriorate, the labor of the worker not only perseveres but adds new value to his product by merely working. If the process of work were to stop at that moment when the worker had produced articles to the value of his own labor power, that is, in 4 hours, this is the only bit of new value created. But the work process does not stop there. This would only cover the expenses of the capitalist in hiring the workmen. The capitalist does not hire workers for charity but for profit. Having freely entered into a contract with the capitalist, the worker must labor on, producing extra value and beyond that sum agreed on as his wage. The means of production on the one hand and labor power on the other, the factors of production of bourgeois economics, represent the different forms assumed by the original capital in the second phase of the cycle. Money, commodity, money. Purchase, production, sale. Capitalist economists treat these factors as equal. Marxism distinguishes between that part of capital which does not undergo any change of value in the process of production, machines, tools, raw materials, and that part represented by labor power which creates new value. The first part of capital is called constant capital and the latter variable capital. The total value of a commodity is made up from constant capital, variable capital, and surplus value. P plus V plus S. The constant capital, variable capital, and the surplus value. The labor performed by the working class can be divided up into two parts. Okay, and I'm not okay, everyone left suddenly. I'm not a Call of Duty streamer. Uh, the labor performed by the working class can be divided up into two parts. Or a gamer streamer, gaming streamer, just purely gaming streamer. I do stream games, but not just games. Necessary labor. This is part of the labor process which is needed to cover the cost of wages. And surplus labor. This is the extra labor performed in addition to labor, which produces the profits. To increase his profits, the capitalist is constantly attempting to reduce his wage bills. He does this by attempting to lengthen the working day, introduce new shift patterns, increase productivity to cover wages more quickly, resist wage rises, or attempt to cut them. Rate of still a fair bit left. Rate of surplus value. Since the whole purpose of capitalist production is to extract surplus value from the labor of the working class, the proportion between variable capital wages and the surplus value of profits and the surplus value is of the greatest importance. One is expanding or contracting at the expense of the other. This struggle over the surplus constitutes the class struggle. What concerns the capitalist is not so much the amount of surplus value produced, but the rate of surplus value. For every pound he lays out in capital, he expects a big return. The rate of surplus value is the rate of exploitation of labor by the capital. It may be defined as S over V, or surplus labor over necessary labor. It is the same thing expressed in a different way, where V is equal to variable capital and S is surplus value. For example, in a small plant, total capital of 500 pounds is divided between constant 4 ton pounds and variable 90 pounds. Through the process of production, the value of the commodities have increased by 90 pounds surplus. C plus V plus S, or 410 plus 90 plus 90 surplus. The total new value is 590. It is the variable capital that is the living labor. That is, it produces the new value of surplus value. So the relative increase in the value produced by variable capital gives us the rate of surplus value. S over V is equal to 90 over 90, 100% rate of surplus value. The rate of profit. Under the pressure of competition at home and abroad, the capitalist is compelled to constantly revolutionize the means of production and to increase productivity. The need to expand compels him to spend a larger and larger proportion of his capital on machinery and raw materials and less on labor power, thus diminishing the proportion of variable capital to constant capital. Side by side with automation goes the concentration of capital, the liquidation of smaller concerns, and the dominance of the economy by giant monopolies. This constitutes a change in the technical consumption of capital. But since it is the variable capital, labor power alone which is the source of surplus value, profit, the bigger amounts invested in constant capital results in the tendency for the rate of profit to fall. Although with new investments profits can increase enormously, they do not rise proportionately to the much greater capital outlay. For example, take a small capitalist with a total capital of 150 pounds made up of constant capital 50 and variable 100. He employs 10 men at 10 pounds per day, making tables and chairs. After one day work, they produce 250 pounds in total value. Total capital, the wages paid 100 pounds, constant capital 50 pounds, surplus value 100 pounds. The rate of surplus value can be calculated S over V. 100 over 100 is 100%. The rate of profit is calculated as the ratio between total capital and surplus value. Surplus value over total capital, or 100 pounds or 150 pounds, is equal to 66.66% rate of profit. As the amount of constant capital is increased, so the rate of profit falls. In the same example, given the same rate of surplus value, we increase the constant capital from 50 pounds to 100 pounds. The rate of profit is equal to surplus value over total capital. 100 over 200 is 50%. Again, if we increase the constant capital to 200 pounds, all the other things being equal, surplus value over total capital, 100 over 300 is 33.33 rate of profit. And lastly, constant capital is increased to 300 pounds. The rate of profit would be 100 over 400, 25%. This increase in constant capital expresses in Marxist terms a higher organic composition of capital and is a progressive in development of the productive forces. The tendency is therefore built into the very nature of the capitalist mode of production and has been one of the major problems facing the capitalist class in the post-war period. The mass of surplus value increases, but in proportion to the increased size of constant capital, it results in a falling rate of profit. The capitalists have continually attempted to overcome this contradiction by the increased exploitation of the working class to increase the mass of surplus value and therefore the rate of profit by means other than investment. They do this in a number of ways, by raising the intensity of exploitation, increasing the speed of the machinery, and lengthening of the workday. Another method to restore the rate of profit is to cut the real wages of workers below their real value. Oh, hello. I think I turned off my mic for a bit. Export of capital. The highest stage of capitalism, imperialism, is marked by the enormous export of capital. In their search for increased rates of profit, the capitalists are forced to invest huge sums of money abroad in countries of low composition of capital. Eventually, the whole world, as Marx and Engels explained in the Communist Manifesto, becomes dominated by the capitalist mode of production. One of the major contradictions of capitalism is the obvious problem that the working class as consumers have to buy back what they have produced, but as they do not receive the full value of their labor, they have not the resources to do this. The capitalists solve this contradiction by taking the surplus and reinvesting it in developing the productive forces further. They also seek to sell the remaining surplus on the world market in competition with the capitalists of all the other different countries. But there are also limits to this, as all the capitalists of the world are playing the same game. In addition, the capitalists resort to credit via the banking system to provide the necessary cash for the mass of the population to buy goods. Where was I? Okay. But this also has its limits, as the credit eventually has to be paid back with interest. That explains why periodically the booms are followed in regular succession by the periods of slump. The feverish struggle for markets ending up in a crisis of overproduction for capitalism, the destructiveness of the crisis, which are met with the wholesale writing off of accumulated capital, are a sufficient indication of the impasse of capitalist societies. All the factors that led to the world upswing after the war have prepared the way for downswing and crisis. The characteristic of this epoch, new epoch, new epoch or epic, I don't know, new epoch, I guess. New epoch is the organic crisis that capitalism now faces. At some stage, the working class will be faced with a 1929 type slump if capitalism is not eradicated. Only by overthrowing the anarchy of capitalist production can humanity prevent the chaos, wastage, and barbarism of capitalism. Only by eliminating private property of the means of production can society escape the laws of motion of capitalism and develop and blossom in a planned and rational way. The mighty forces of production built by class society can abolish once and for all the criminal scandal of so-called overproduction in a world of want and starvation, eradicating the contradiction of the development of the productive forces and the nation state and private ownership will provide the basis for an international plan of production. Using the powers of science and technology, the whole of the planet could be transformed in the space of a decade. Okay, that's a bit optimistic. The socialist transformation of society remains the most urgent and burning task facing the world's working class. Marxism provides the weapon and understanding to wield together this mighty army for the establishment of a socialist Britain, a socialist Europe, and the basis for the World Federation of Socialist States. Okay, and we are done. We have finished this read, and now let's see here. We are here.